Friends, we're 1 minute late, but I would like to call the February 16th school board meeting to order. If you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the floor is open at present for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Oh, well, I got the flag salute first. All right. We have public comments. I got one person that has indicated interest. So, Ken, the floor is yours. We have the usual, unless you'd like to speak at the end.
Well, I
At the
was hoping
time
to
of
talk
the,
at that item
at that
4D.
item, right.
Oh, okay, at the time
If
before,
that's
that would be
allowed.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, are there any other comments from the public? Well, we appreciate you all being here. Comment from the public, this is your opportunity. All right. So we will move on to board member comments.
Me. What did I do? Let's see. Oh, we had our lunch with the middle school, with the leadership group there, and I was so impressed with those kids. I mean, I'm not going to call them kids; the young adults. They were fun, and they were professional, and they were great speakers, and that's not something that I saw when I was in junior high. So it was really nice to see that kind of group that would interact with like the new kids that come in. That was one of the hard things for me coming into middle school. I think that's a tough time for kids. So that was a really cool thing to see. And then I got to have coffee with Mr. Campbell, Professor Campbell, and got some good insight on Vice President Scholl office. So I thank you for that. So.
Laura?
Oh, I'm still in the reading program over at Sand Hill, which is about the most entertaining thing I do all week. Those kids are pretty bright and very, how can I say it, precocious is a good word for it.
How many do you have in your group?
I just do one-on-one, and then there's about 4 or 5 little students that kind of factor through while I'm there, and they read to me, and they give me a lot of information about what it's like to be in school. It's just really entertaining. I'm not going to share everything now, but I may write a book because it's
Hey, all right.
really good. And I too went to the lunch with the middle school leadership group, and they were very engaging, and honestly I could have sat there for another 2 hours. They really are quite an exciting group of kids. It'll be fun to have them in high school too.
Well, what we're talking about is the school board recognition month, and you're probably wondering why we got so much publicity last month. That was school board, well, it's still school board recognition month, isn't it?
No, that was January.
Well,
Every
It's
month.
over.
it was such a great event. I feel like I was so affirmed. I feel like it's still going on. So this was this last couple of weeks have been a busy time for, on the legislative front. A week before last, what was it? This Monday we were still there. Okay, week before last, on behalf of WASDA, I went down to Olympia twice. A week ago Monday to testify in favor of full funding for our schools. And there was a group of there weren't as many as we would like, but there were various school people from superintendents to teachers. And I had a couple of other school board members from different districts there. And then on that Friday, I went to testify on the Public Records Act that they have a modified version of on Friday. And then on Saturday, on Sunday, was the preparation for the Day on the Hill. And so at 8 o'clock, I was at South Sound Community College, and all the delegates from all over came in the auditorium there, and we heard from a number of different speakers. The superintendent of, our new superintendent of public instruction, Mr. Reichdahl, and there was a panel on the McCleary decision, and that was very interesting and informative. And then the governor spoke to us as well. And then on Monday, we had our Day on the Hill, and I was part of a group that we spoke to Representative Griffey, and we spoke to and McEwen. He was actually brought off the floor so he could talk to us. And then we were able to have an interview with Tim Sheldon. And we had some other people with us that day, but I will wait for the full report.
Thank you, John. I don't have a whole lot to report, except I want to piggyback on something Laura brought up. You know, you should join the Builders Club.
Me?
Yes, today, the Builders Club went and did their reading to kindergartners event, which they do at least once a year. They like to do it more than that, but we haven't always been able to make that work. They read to every kindergartner in both schools. They had our Builders Club kids, this is the middle school kids, they had a wonderful time doing that. They also got to do recess, which is even more fun for them. That's where I have to be out there monitoring the middle schoolers, because they tend to, hit that tether ball a little bit too hard and jumping too high and a little bit too rough for the little ones, and have to remind them, remember, you're here to play with them, not above them or beyond them or whatever. And they get that, and they do that. But their reading was really wonderful. There was a meltdown of one little boy right when we showed up in the kindergarten class, and he had to be removed. He was about to bust through the glass windows, or who knows what was going on, but we got out of the way and that got taken care of. And then the kids, the kindergarten teachers split their kids so that there were 1 or 2 or 3 kindergartners being read to by each one of our middle schoolers. In some cases, it was one-on-one.
Oh, fun.
And that was great, but it was just really neat to watch. The little kids really seem to like that. Our own kids love that. Like I say, they come out of it and they say, can we do this again? And I wonder, is it because you get out of school? Or is it really because, almost all of them remark about how, things that are not educational directly. They're so cute and that kind of thing. But they seem to really enjoy the reading. We have one student in our Builders Club who's a very poor reader. Unfortunately, he didn't come. I was really looking forward to him coming, because this would have been a chance for him to boost his own self in the reading skills. Nevertheless, it just seemed to work really well. And I have to say, your granddaughter, Laura, is one of our Builders Club kids who went today.
Oh, fun.
And she is an awesome young woman.
Thank you.
In any case, that was really the only thing I've done, other than I've been paying a lot of attention to the national educational issues. And I just wanted to throw out, I'm not going to be political on this one, but our new education secretary nationally has said a bunch of things that people like and don't like. And I just noticed in one particular case, she said something that I really liked, but turned around and said something that I really didn't like. And I won't belabor that, but the funny thing was, the thing that she brought up, the topic, was the same topic. And so on the one hand, she seemed to very much understand what was wrong with what's been going on, but then she's the first one pushing what's wrong. Interesting, all I can say. But enough said. You can now move on.
Well, I'm very interested, Grace, in your report because
Okay.
Grace was on the day on the Hill and was there for the whole experience.
I was there on the day on the Hill, and it was a very good experience for me. It was fun hearing about all the issues that we were talking about to our representatives. I felt very important and that I was speaking up for a good cause for my school, so that felt really good. And it was just a good day, and we got to tour the Capitol. Dan Griffey was nice enough to show us around, which was very cool and very nice of him. But aside from that, at the high school, we sent our wrestlers off to state today, so go them. Our bowlers got 6th in state earlier this month, and we just had a very intimate Tolo dance. It was small, but we brought in about $600 for the senior class, so that's good.
All right.
Good.
Yeah, and I had a meeting today at the Admiral Theater to get prom started. So
Super.
things are on the move.
Yeah.
All right.
Busy lady.
Yes, very.
Before you go on, John, I was asked to remind you all if you could try to use the mics tonight. Some of the community couldn't hear you very well last month, so that they made a request.
So it isn't for the folks here, it's for the folks out there.
So they can hear.
Oh, okay, so you can hear me?
If the green light's on,
Okay.
it's on. If the red light's on, push the big round button.
All right.
Then you'll be good.
Okie dokie.
You hear me?
Okay. Well, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that would like to remove an issue from the consent agenda and have it discussed separately?
You want to have a motion
was
first?
something I was-
And then we get
Sure.
to that.
Would anyone like to make, I will, yeah, the floor is open for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, I move that we accept the consent agenda as it is presented to us.
Is there any discussion?
I just want to say thank you as always for all of our donations. I won't go through them, but I love
Yes.
that.
I have
Favorite part.
a question, which is really more directed to the superintendent. The VocaVision SLP contract, which is in there, didn't we already do that?
We did a VocaVision. VocaVision is a vendor, so we did a contract for a OT with VocaVision, an occupational therapist. And yes, we had done a shorter duration speech contract, but then our speech therapist that was on leave will continue to not be available, so we're extending that contract.
So that's what this is, an extension
Yeah.
then of what we'd already done. Okay. That wasn't clear in the
Yeah.
written materials
Okay.
to me anyway.
Okay, and this one is an action item. Oh, we haven't accepted.
To vote.
We haven't
Okay,
voted.
that's right.
Unless there's any other
This is
discussion.
still the democracy. but We need to watch these strong rulers that usurp their function, the legislative function. So, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, consent agenda has been accepted. Now we're down to item 3, Feller surplus sale of facility rental items. And I will turn that over to Dana.
It's really very simple. There are a variety of items that are inside the building that are not items of historic value. Those we are keeping and will continue to display. But things that were used for party rentals and things, dishes, stuff like that, that we won't be able to use elsewhere in the district, we are going to surplus just like we have with our other buildings as we prepare to transition the Feller Center into the Early Childhood Center. So this is the notice that you take action so that we can do that, so that then we can notice the public and we can have a garage sale, basically.
Okay, the floor is open at this point to approve the sale of surplus items at Feller.
I move that we approve the sale of surplus items at Feller.
All right, discussion?
Is there a time frame when it will happen? Is it going to be
We have to notice for 30 days, right? So after that, after you approve, then we'll place the notices. And so Denise has already been working on that. I think that will happen next week. So it'll be about a month from now before we have the sale.
And will it be a one-day sale or
Yes,
something? like-
probably.
So
So-
open for people to come look, that kind of
People
thing.
can come in just like they did up here, same kind of thing. Mark did very well on his Hawkins garage sale. I think we made as a district over $20,000
Wow.
Yeah.
to put towards other expenses for our buildings and our kids in the future.
Right on.
It was.
And would the proceeds
crazy
from
there.
this be plowed back into the Feller?
It's district property, so it
district
would go
property.
back in, we could, but it will probably just go back into the maintenance and operations funds, and that's one of the buildings
so
that we
is an
maintain. And
Operational issue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any further comments or discussion?
I was just gonna say what was on the sheet, in case people can't see it. It just says furniture, kitchen dishes, and holiday decorations.
lots of holiday decorations, right, Joan?
Probably-
At Feller, lots of holiday decorations.
Is it a lot of Easter egg? It-
No.
no?
actually,
Okay,
the
good.
Easter eggs, New Life Church is going to be doing the Easter egg hunt.
Very
so
cool.
We're going to do that.
You gotta do that. I have some if you guys want more.
Will these be including Art's mattresses?
They're not mine.
Oh, so I guess you'll give the.
No,
They
the,
belong to
Oh,
Feller now.
wow, so.
no, the hub was working on recreating the warming center
Oh,
that we
yeah.
had, so they asked for the mattresses so that
all
they
right.
could make that happen in the future.
How nice.
Well, I'm delighted that they will have a good home and further use. Those were tough mattresses. I think they can take it for at least another decade.
Could be.
So, okay, if there's no further comments,
Call for the question.
I would, oh, yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Why not?
Are you keeping some of the kitchen? Because I thought if you're having a preschool.
Kitchen
some kitchen,
not the dishes, no. Kitchen equipment, the appliances and that kind of stuff, yes, and we're upgrading those as well, but
okay. That was the question. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, I'd call for the question on the sale of Feller surplus items. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, and this brings us to board development and linkage. So I will turn it over to Dana for our superintendent update.
Okay, and we will just swing right in and start with our budget update from Kathy Severs.
I wasn't watching well enough. Oh, it's my turn. Good evening. So you have our, I lost everything just a minute ago. You have the budget status that I've supplied to you, and it's very basic, easy month this month. And we are talking about our budget status for January. And you'll notice on the report that you were provided, we have actually higher revenues this month than budget, and we have lower expenditures. So we're doing very well in that regard. We're down about 65,000 in expenditures from budget, and about 62,000 were increased in revenue. And that's again from budget, which can vary from month to month. Our fund balance is doing quite well. We have about $2 million in fund balance compared to the average of about $1,298,000, the three-year average. We're doing quite well, and we've been, again, working on that very hard to keep that steady and increased. We have our other funds, our capital project debt service, ASB, and transportation vehicle fund. For the month of January, our capital projects fund is sitting at about 1.7 million. We had just received a large state match payment, so we're staying steady there with what we're paying out and what we're receiving back from the Hawkins state match. Debt service is a little over $1 million that's sitting, that sits in there to pay off the bond. The ASB is sitting normal, about $300,000, and then our transportation vehicle fund went down to about 176 because we finally paid for that bus that we received that we ordered last year. And then finally, our enrollment projection is good news. Our enrollment is actually, we had, for the month of February, historically, North Mason stays fairly steady with their enrollment up until February, and then it kind of starts declining a little bit. So this month, we were up about 14 kids in elementary and middle school, and then we lost some in high school, but we still netted about 5 kids increase for the month of,
That's good.
well, it was February's count, so it was really the full month of January, which is great and not very historic. And then we'll probably show a little bit of a decline as we go due to, we have this trimester ending, the second trimester, and we usually get a couple seniors that graduate early then. But overall, we are still up about 28 kids from budget. So, so we're doing quite well.
Great.
Kathy, do you have any reason for that? Did we build it and they just came?
I think we talked about that last time. I think maybe that did happen.
And we have had, each month this year, we have had a number of new students register. We were just talking about it this morning. Again, at Ad Team, the middle school had several new students. The high school and the elementaries just in the last week as well, so.
Right, and this number is actually from the February 1st count. So if we've had more since then, they've increased. But just since January and February, we had 10 students increase in elementary.
Wow.
Which is great,
Yeah.
because then that typically flows up to the high school. So
Yeah, very cool.
I think we're right on target. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
No, but I would like to offer a commendation in probably, I think in each of the testimonies I gave, I emphasized our prudence with the budget. And not all my colleagues are able to make a claim such as that. And I could use that to, even when we are prudent, Bremerton can still, so I illustrated that. But I particularly want to thank you, Kathy, for your prudence in managing our affairs, because it is part of what I take to others when I'm arguing for more funding for our public schools.
Well, thank you. And probably some of the prudence is, probably the big talk is the levy cliff in the legislature. So I think there's maybe
There's
under
fewer,
5 of us that are actually under the actual levy lid that's going to roll back to 24, and that would be in a perfect world. We don't really know what's going to happen, but we know it'll go away at some point. So that won't affect us, which makes it a lot easier for us at this point in time with the long legislative session to make some final financial decisions for next year for budgeting purposes.
All right?
Okay.
Any
Yeah,
other
just-
questions?
Yes, slightly tangent question. Do we yet know when the state audit is going to happen?
I was in touch with the auditor. It seems that the auditor's office is pretty overrun and maybe short-staffed. So the last gal that I spoke to, we have been lucky here at North Mason and have had the same auditor come for the last 4 years. And last year, she had given birth to twins, and she was going to come back one more year here, and we were very excited because it's very nice to have the same person. You just kind of know what to look for and ask for. And she decided that having 2 little babies was maybe more important than working. So she did not come back to the state auditor's office, and I think that had something to do with their staffing. So the gal I spoke to, because of that, we don't really have an assigned auditor. And so this gal said it might be her that comes because there's nobody to send out, and she's not really the person that goes out to do the audits. So fortunately, I know her because I've worked with her in another district, and we would be lucky to get her. So hopefully that'll happen
in March.
in March. So they
Maybe.
believe it'll be March that they're going to come out, and they will be doing a full audit on everything.
Good.
So,
Did you invite her to bring her twins?
no, this is a different.
Oh, okay, right.
The twins, gal decided not to come back to work.
Okay.
She had her hands full.
Right, if you, just a personal request, I'd like to, if possible, get in on the
The
not-
entry meeting.
Entry
Oh,
meeting.
Yes.
great,
Right.
Great.
So if you could keep me apprised of the dates as they're being worked out, and I'll try
Absolutely.
to
And-
make my schedule work for that too.
It's been very, not a lot of communication because I really don't think they have a time to give me. They just kind of, oh, probably March, oh, sometime in March. But they have, timelines too that they have to fulfill. So I assume it'll be March. I believe it was March last year or pretty close to it.
Yeah, there were a few districts that didn't get them out into the districts till April, and that's really cutting it close. So that would be our worst case scenario, but like Kathy said, normally we have a specific week when they're going to arrive by now, and we don't. So as soon as we do, we'll let the board know.
Great.
Okay.
Kathy, thank you very much.
All right. So
So,
next.
well, go ahead.
Go ahead. Next up, we are going to hear from Jason Swazer, our assistant principal at the elementary schools, with a proposal from Sand Hill.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So in an effort to kind of establish an identity at Sand Hill, we wanted to look at a potential change in our mascot name, not species change, just name. We feel that to accommodate all of our kids and their ability to, with our little kids, the mountain lions can be cumbersome. Cougars is shorter, and it would be something that we would like to establish. So last year it was brought up at our ILT, our instructional leadership team, which is a member from each grade level. We all meet twice a month. That the change is something important for our school and our kids. So we went through that process, got approval through that team. I also approached the PTA, and they agreed unanimously. We have a student leadership team at Sand Hill who voted for the change as well. And I also sent out requests to our community members through email, and I got a lot of responses that sounds great. So I'd like to propose that to be changed from Sand Hill Mountain Lions to Sand Hill Cougars.
And this is a rhetorical change. It's actually biologically the same animal.
Right.
Well, what's in a word?
And we have cougars around here, right? But not,
Why not?
I mean, mountain lions. I guess it's the same thing,
yeah,
but we wouldn't call it a mountain lion here.
Right.
The only backlash I got was that the Cougars are going to be moving up to be Huskies next year, so that might be.
Oh.
Might have a
I think it's funny. Yeah, that might be a little interesting. But, so this is an action item, a potential action item.
Well, I'm open at this point. Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
It's a great move.
I think so.
Good job.
Okay.
These two items are actually lumped together.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
but you could vote separately
Right.
or together. It's
Okay.
up to you.
I move that we approve the request to change the Sand Hill Elementary's mascot to the Cougars.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes.
Okay. Here I am again.
Yeah.
Please welcome Todd Herring, Assistant Principal at Hawkins Middle School. Todd also has a proposal for you related to the pause policies.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come present. As some of you may know, we have what we call our PAWS, which is our behavior expectations. And the PAWS eligibility for sports is not based on grades, but more on effort and behavior in the classroom. And the current policy has showed some issues. And we had some communication from parents, also from students and staff. Three kind of main things were the issues. One, it was real punitive. There were consequences, but there weren't opportunities to kind of get yourself back in good standing. The second one was that the consequences for the choices were delayed. Sometimes up to 4 or 5 weeks later, you would start to get, so you could have 4 weeks of making poor choices in the classroom before there would be any effect on that. And then the third one was, quite frankly, very confusing. That was one issue that a lot of parents had, was the confusing nature of it. even I was confused when I first read it, and staff is confused even still. But more importantly, our students were confused. And if they're being held to this standard, and they don't really understand that there's an issue. So we formed a committee pretty early on and had a lot of feedback. Went to our PTSA, went to our parent advisory group, also went to students, went to staff, and what we came up with, we feel, addresses those three main issues. One is not just consequences, but if you have let's say you do get on the track of consequences, and you have a week of positive scores, then you can earn your way back down. So it's not just punitive, but it gives the student athletes an opportunity to kind of rectify and earn that back. The second issue is it's timely. The first offense, so to speak, is a warning, just a meeting with me or with Ms. Warren to discuss kind of what's going on, how can we help, those types of things. The second one, they would miss a practice, but instead of just going home or doing whatever, they would be in a study hall. So it would help it works at the issue that they're having, and to be with a certificated teacher to go over any issues they might have. And then it progresses from there, but again, they have the opportunity to earn their way back. And third, and probably most importantly, is it makes a little more sense to the people who have read it and looked into it. Again, we've run it by a lot of different groups, and I honestly can't remember a detracting vote or anything. And so because of that, we would like to propose, and I believe you have copies in front of you, that we make the change because it's best for kids. So we're asking for that approval. So any questions or comments?
So is this related to grades in the classroom that puts them on this path? Or behavior, or?
Behavior grades, yes, not
Okay.
academic grades.
Okay.
So when we went to the standards-based grading, it made things a little bit challenging for behavior and things like that, which aren't tracked through our standards-based. So that's when this was developed, so that there could be some accountability for classroom behavior and effort. So they're kind of two separate ones. So this is based just off of the behavior and the effort, which is what our PAWS scores are.
Okay.
And every student gets them every day, every class, every week. But for our student athletes, that is what we're going to base the eligibility on. Not on the academics, so to speak, but on their performance and their effort.
Okay, thank you.
I like the philosophically not being based on grades. There's a time and a place and a reason for grades being a part of, but I like that it's not, I like where it's been, and I also like what you're trying to do with it in addition. And I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not a slave to the grades, and a lot of people are. I'm just not, so I like that.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate the fact that you're looking at opportunities to regain your spot rather
So
than
important.
consequences because of everything. Here's your consequences. It's more of it's an opportunity that you're being challenged with.
And that's what we really we're trying to teach our students is, the whole PBIS system, it's positive, yes, it's okay, we don't expect you to be perfect, but how can we recover, how can we earn that back? And this provides that.
Yeah.
This increases to me the individualization of what we're doing in school with kids, and I do like that. No two kids are the same.
Absolutely.
And they don't learn the same, they don't behave the same, they don't think the same, and we should not be treating them all the same because of that. We should be focusing in on their strengths and how to help their weaknesses and that sort of stuff. And this is a very tiny little step, but it's in that direction.
Good. Thank you.
I think my colleagues have covered it well. I agree and commend you for viewing school as something for which one can get reward rather than just punishment. Well, is there any did we move?
No, I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that we approve the changes to the Hawkins Middle School athletic pause policy as recommended.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
Not for me.
I think I'll just say really quick that I think that this, it seems like it's gonna give them faster guidance so that they don't get on a track where it's a downward spiral and they can't come back from it, so,
Gives us that opportunity to intervene quickly.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Awesome.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you also for the comments and for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, this brings us to capital projects.
Yes, so our next item up is an update on our planning for stadium project. As you're aware, at the last meeting, we discussed some changes and we asked Ray Mao, our architect, and his team to take a look and see what is possible for us by looking at a combination build remodel instead of a completely new build. So Ray has a picture we can share with you, and we can kind of talk about where we are. We are moving forward. We are going to get our loan rating to approve those additional dollars to complete the project tomorrow, and then we will be going out to sell that obligation out into the financial community. So it's looking good from that perspective. So Ray, you want me to hold it?
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
Grab a chair.
Very
I'm
cool.
gonna
Oh, we
donate
have
an
one.
easel to you folks next time.
We'll order one so we have one next time.
So you should have an 8.5 by 11 of the same graphic representation. So the idea here was kind of the same vein that we had when we turned the existing high school into Hawkins Middle School. What can we
I
do?
might just ask a minute, do you folks have a picture of this?
Denise is taking care of that.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, Ray.
Yeah, I didn't, that one on the back, yeah. So in that kind of light, you know, when we use the high school for Hawkins Middle School, good stewards of your existing facilities, we had the same kind of thought process for the existing stadium. Now, what we have here are all of the amenities that the new stadium would have provided, but we have an opportunity to manage the execution of the project in steps, which helps us better manage potentials for escalation, changing the bid market. It also has an opportunity to potentially have smaller contractors take a look at certain components of it, which could have an opportunity to bring some local contractors
All right.
in to do some work here at the district. So there's another benefit there about taking this approach. So basically what we have done is we've looked at the components of this new stadium, and we are implementing them in what we already have in the existing stadium. Now, the other benefits of doing this is, number one, we're saving quite a bit on having to regrade and reconstruct the site because it's already there. We already have a relatively new track. It was just resurfaced not too long ago and striped. And we have space available to do that. And we are also adjacent to a good-sized parking lot. So there's amenities are there, like somebody back in 1983 thought this out pretty good. So what we'd like to do is take the concessions locker room building that we had designed with Mark Sparfler and basically just relocate it to this location. It allows us to have the attendees come in and they go straight to the concessions, get their food, use the restroom, so and then we still have a place for the visitors and home teams to go in at halftime and use that. And it's just not for football, for track and field, all the other entities that occur in there. We are looking at relocating some of the things that were in this field for track and field, like the javelin and that sort of things, and perform that activities on the softball field. Now let me back up a second. This is my landscape architects and my kind of brainstorming. There's a process still to make sure that we get the district involved and the different administrators involved and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So, new concessions building, we're looking at the existing stadium. We're looking at replacing it with a new covered stadium. Currently, I had a structural engineer take a look at it, and we have some exposed rebar, and there's other little things there that would lend itself to just replace it without a lot of grading. We're looking at also replacing the visitors bleachers. They could use some help, some replacements there. And then also the new lights. So we'll replace the existing stadium lights with high efficiency LEDs. We already have the poles there. So that's a huge savings, because new lights are about $250,000. So we just replace the actual fixtures. And then replace the scoreboard. That will bring the more amenities, track and field, multiple use, be able to use the scoreboard for a lot more than just football. And then lastly, we looked at improving the access passes throughout. You know, I have some brainstorming ideas depending on budget with how we better serve and access from the upper parking area to the lower parking area. Maybe get it some more lighting there, because sometimes it gets kind of dark when between this point to that point. And so if we can get something more prominent, brighter lit, I think there's a good safety issue that we can resolve as we're doing the projects. And one thing that you don't see on this board is, depending on budgeting, we have a small mountain out there by the field that we're going to use. And there's a potential that if funds work out the way we hope they work out, we would grub and clear a portion by the baseball field and start the development of a new softball field, which is a goal that we are hoping to do in the future. But luckily we retain that soil, that good stable structural soil, to be used somewhere on site. So that kind of brings a tertiary item that we'd be able to address. So that's kind of the plan of attack. Now, as far as the process, we can look at doing, and of course, the artificial field. We're replacing the grass turf with an artificial field turf in conjunction with the county. So as far as phasing this endeavor, we can do this in pieces. So as we're recovering funds from state assistance and other elements, we could start with, prioritizing, and we can start with replacing the field first. I'm not putting in any particular order, because we still need to discuss that. We can build the concessions building, we can do it separately. And that's where I'm coming into saying that we may be able to get the smaller contractors involved. Now, the artificial turf is a specialist contractor, so there's just a few that do that. But the size of that concessions building, I don't know, it's Holman's Masonry, Lenny's? No, that'd be perfect local contractor that did this project. So they also volunteered to work for the masonry on the ticket booth years ago. So that's the plan. Any questions or comments?
Comment. I'm impressed with the way it's looking, and what the concepts you're going to. What I'm getting, and which kind of surprised me in the last month, I'm getting a lot of pushback from community members and others. The comment I'm hearing most often is, we expected a new stadium. So while I have no problems with this, and if we all decide to do this, I'm going to be behind it. But I'm starting to worry that we haven't done enough homework on talking to our community. And I feel like we need to do that. And I think we need to do it in a big way, not just what we hear comments of, because people that have talked to me, that's just a sample, and it's not necessarily a representative sample. I can't say that people that talk to me have spoken for the community, because all they're saying is, where's that stadium, or things like that. I'm not getting people that are saying the other side of things, and I'm sure they're out there. But I'm just feeling, as a board member, and I don't usually get comments from people. People mostly don't ask me anything or talk to me about much of anything at all. I don't get very many telephone calls, and all of a sudden I'm starting to get them. So I'm feeling, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm feeling like we need to talk to the community some more, and not just from what we're hearing. I think we need to maybe put a Survey Monkey thing out there, which maybe net us a couple hundred people responding. I think we need to have maybe articles that we can, pay for in the newspaper or something like that. We need maybe have a forum where we sit down and ask people to come in and talk. And of course, it is going to be a limited conversation, or limited. Those are going to be the people who have something to say. But I feel like we need to get a sense of where the community is. I have no problem telling the community, the people that are mad or that want to see that new stadium, saying, hey, we don't have the money to build a new stadium. And if there's enough of them, well, can you step up and fund it? with a bond or whatever it takes. And then if that's the case, then I would like to do that. But if there aren't enough of them and our community, says, no, we don't want to pay anything more, but we really want a stadium, then it really comes down to us to make a decision, and I'd be supporting of this. I think I probably said enough.
I'm completely supportive of this, and I believe that the people that I've talked to and explained that no, there won't be a second stadium down below. This will be our Cadillac Stadium, because I believe it will look like a Cadillac Stadium when they're finished with it. That we won't be maintaining 2 complete stadiums, because that would be the result if we built a brand new stadium down there. Not to mention, we don't have the money in the capital projects funds to be able to do that. And the folks that I've talked to have been very receptive to that. Well, that's good, because we don't want to, we don't want to spend more money than we have. We don't have it. So I think that if we present it, it doesn't have to be a great big show. It's just one-on-one, one person to one person to one person. You have opportunities to do that when they call you on the phone. And I think if we, as school board directors, can get that information out into those groups and forums that we're already part of, then the word spreads. And we're going to have fields down there that will be used as well, but it won't be a big stadium. It won't be a second stadium. School districts our size don't have 2 stadiums. They don't have a middle school stadium and a high school stadium. So I'm okay with this plan. I think this is going to be a beautiful stadium, and I think the middle school will have the use of it as well. So, and we won't be going beyond what we can actually afford at this point. So I understand what you're saying, Art, and I do agree. I think communication is the key, and we can do that through our mode of communication right now, which is a variety of different styles of communicating with the public.
I guess for me, the major point for me is I want to hear from the community before making a decision, so that the community has the understanding and belief that they did chime in with us. It wasn't that we decided and now we're convincing them. That's the distinction for me. That is important to me right now. I'm just getting enough of that weird stuff that I feel like, okay, I'd rather know what the community collectively is thinking. I'm happy to try to, convince people one way or the other, but I just feel like right now there's enough people making me worry that if we make a unilateral decision to do this, that they're going to feel shut out and we're going to get some negative that will spread feedback. And I'd rather not that happen. I'd rather have them, let's present this up front the way we're hearing it. And, people I think will respond. I think people don't want us to live beyond our means financially and stuff like that, but perhaps they're not understanding well enough just where we're at, and we've got to do a better job, or that's where I'm coming from. So
I think this is really responsible of us to do what we have here on this board and working with what we have and being able to give our kids something amazing and not have to use a whole bunch of money. And then if we talk to people and they go, well, I don't think people want to wait. So now I'm thinking that if they have to wait for a really long time to get it done, what else is going to come up later on that they're going to want as well? That there's going to be things that need to be built and things that need to be fixed and all that. So we're going to need money then later on for different things. But I think it would make them wait if we had to push it all out and not get everything done.
If I may.
Yeah.
In our original planning of this, and I realize I'm repeating what you probably know better than I do, but in our original planning, we had a Community Facilities Advisory Committee that helped develop the plans for everything that would be done with the bond. And that committee has been involved in this planning step as we looked at, okay, here's where we are. We do have construction costs that have risen since we passed the bond that have, although we've been really frugal and come in within the budgets that we approved for each portion of the build outs, those were higher than we thought they would be when we went out with the bond in 2013 in many cases, because costs have gone up as much as 23%. And that committee looked at that, and they were those folks who came together for us after we did the broad, this is what we want to do, and passed a bond, and did the planning, and they came back and approved this planning, and that's what we brought back to the board. So our community advisory people have been very involved in this discussion as we move forward. And yes, we can communicate very clearly why we're doing what we're doing, but in passing the bond and improving the expenditures and the approval of moving forward with pursuing the additional funding to get this project done, we have made those decisions along the way to move forward to achieve a world-class stadium for the district, just not a world-class stadium and keeping the one that was really nice and is still really nice, but is not 21st century.
Do we have something on the website? I know we have these things on the website, and I haven't looked recently. But if we had this up there with a little blurb maybe that just said why we think this is responsible,
we can do
that might help people that aren't comfortable talking to one of us, and maybe that would help, because people that are really interested in it usually do go to our website and look around or phone call, and maybe a short little blurb of what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think it's a really good idea.
Well, I have to then admit, when we finished out last month's meeting, I was under the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, and so you guys need to correct me if I'm wrong, but that when we had approved the loan, that we were still going to build a new stadium. And so I have said that to several folks who said, well, what's going on? I said, well, at the last board meeting, we approved a loan so that we would be able to build a new stadium, but then the bid came in and it was too high, and so we're looking at other options. That's where I was left with. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but so I've given that message out to several folks, and that's part of where I'm coming from to, I certainly can admit I'm wrong if that was the case, but I'm not comfortable with where I'm hearing things from the community. Golly, send the people who are supporting it to me so I can get other comments and stuff. But I'm not getting that right now.
The timeline was tight, but we did at the last meeting say that part of the reason we were getting that loan was we didn't have enough money to complete the project either way. But we did discuss that the bids came back at the total cost would have been about $7.5 million, and even with this loan, we would not have that total amount of dollars.
Well, I have a different impression.
Okay.
I understood very clearly when we took our vote that it was for this rather than, for the larger thing.
Okay.
And my impression so far, I think I put a great deal of weight on what Dana says, because we don't do our business in a corner. One who wants to keep tabs on us can do so. And I do think that you've got a good point about the need for publicity. And I think that that's an important point that we need to let the community know, and maybe we could do more than we have, about the specifics of this plan. What I've heard is the other side, and my contacts have been largely in Lakeland Village. There's within a certain number of our constituents, there's a kind of nostalgia. And so what are you going to do with the stadium is what I've heard in that case. And that was before we'd made our decision, and there was reluctance, to see this go. And I've talked to the same people since, and they're quite pleased that we're going to be able to keep this and put it in first-class condition, because it's a mark of continuity as well as a mark of change. And the continuity enables generations before, and in this community we certainly have a sense of generations having come before, and there is something new. And in keeping with everything else we have, it seems to fit in. So I have gotten different weather reports, and this would also include Victor, because I go to the Victor Community Club, and they are aged similarly to a number of your constituents in your particular area. So I haven't been hearing that message, and I think we have done the community consultation part in the very things that Dana has said. I am all for giving greater emphasis to this, and in our Mason community life, either a letter for the board or something from the superintendent, or something, a dual hit would be appropriate to let people, just so everybody knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I have no fear about offering a persuasive explanation to the public, particularly because it's based on prudence and it is consistent with everything we did before. Well, this is just in discussion, so
Okay, that's all, yeah.
we can let it
information
go.
discussion, right. So, I guess I just want to, reiterate, I haven't heard from the community members who are behind it.
Mhm.
I've only heard the ones that are worried. Again, I'm not talking about lots of people. 6 out of how many voters and that sort of thing. Nevertheless, that's funny to me.
Well,
This
it's
is
important for those
Yeah.
6 people to
Yeah,
understand
absolutely.
Yes,
what
absolutely.
is going on, and I think the whole communication piece is critical. Whether it's 6 or 600,
Right.
we have to explain this clearly. And the other piece of it that sticks in the back of my mind is we won't have to maintain this old field if we do have a brand new field, because that will still be there to be maintained too. So there's, not to mention the cost of refurbishing the old stadium. There's long-term savings.
You don't have to
too.
convince me.
Oh, I know,
I
I
think
know.
this is a wonderful proposal, and I would be very behind it. Just,
Well, it sounds
Got
like
some
we
funny,
do
funny
need to do
stuff.
some more in-depth communication so our community understands where we're going with this.
Mhm.
right, I guess I want to throw out of the 6, 2 of them brought up the same thing, which this is maybe why it scared me more than anything else. You don't put a new stadium in, we're not going to vote for Belfair Elementary when it comes up. I've heard that, of course, at the bonds before and stuff like that, you don't do this and you don't do that, we're not going to. But that's always, that's a scary thing to have to hear.
It's for the kids, though, and
Well-
Yeah, I know, but
you know.
just
And-
have to throw that out. It was there.
And I think what people will see, just like they've seen with the other projects, particularly when we look at Hawkins, is the combination of new building and remodeling, basically, that this project is, will produce a brand-new stadium effectively, just like Hawkins is a brand-new building effectively.
Mhm.
One thing to add is that we did take a look at the new stadium, and we did try to value engineer parts out, but then all said and done, we could afford it, but you wouldn't have a stadium. You'd be missing a stadium with no stadium, you'd have a field, or a stadium with no scoreboard, or visitor seats, or no concessions. So I guess another discussion is, there was due diligence done as far as we value engineered it before design, during design, we value engineered it after the bids.
Mhm.
And we just can't take enough out and still have a stadium.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that you folks knew that we definitely put a lot of effort into seeing if there was a way that we could make that project successful. But with what was wanted and needed in that stadium just wasn't going to come to fruition.
Yeah. I was at the facilities meeting where they had the discussion about this change, and there was quite a discussion about what it costs to put everything in place down there. For instance, a new septic, all of the electrical. Can't remember exactly what it was, but I was floored because I never thought about any of that. And all of that exists over here already. So there's a huge amount of money saved by not having to do all of that, whatever it's called. Can't-
Value.
Infrastructure,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Good thing, Casey.
To get it ready to plant a stadium on top of it. So they're a good group of people, and they're quite a wide variety and representative, I think, of our community. And again, if we just go out and maybe go to some meetings and talk to some folks and ask what the questions are and have the answers, I think it will be acceptable to the community.
Yeah, I plan to, particularly in light of this discussion, the Victor Club has a meeting once every week, and these would be the most, I think you folks do a great job at supporting our schools, and I really appreciate that. These folks would be of the age that might be more reluctant than some to support. They're always interested in the economy. I don't anticipate any difficulty in explaining this. And I think there's a further thing that is in our favor, and that's simply kind of what Ray mentioned, reality. There's nothing else to be done. And that's it. This is the thing that we must do because there's no alternative. To put off decision is to let prices rise. And so I think this is just one of those reasons why we have school boards. I think we should go ahead and make our decision very clear to the community and go ahead with it. We are elected to deliberate for the community. We have, and we have done one of the most important things we can, which is prudence in regard to the spending of public monies. And I think in light of the savings, absolute savings, in terms, even had we been able to do the stadium, there's the amount of money it would have cost. And now we're able to, come in under that. I'm perfectly comfortable with where we are, and I agree entirely with Art about the need to communicate well and clearly with our constituents. And I'm confident of the outcome. I'll call you right after the Victor meeting. Maybe I'll have some of them call you.
That would be wonderful. I'd love to hear some.
I think he has 6 people lined up to call you.
All
so.
right.
Yeah.
I'll raise you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have had an opportunity to discuss that, and I really appreciate, Ray, your presentation to us, and Art, I really thank you for raising an important objection that we always have to consider.
And we will continue to communicate and gather feedback so as we move along and have further discussion as where the project's going, we can bring that feedback back in for discussion and those comments and things.
Okay, this brings us back to Dana and the district success.
It is. Well, actually, it's budget timeline and the superintendent budget guidelines. So Kathy prepared those for you, and you have them in your packet. We do just want to say, because we're, like all the districts in the state, kind of in limbo as far as budgeting this year, we are in a situation where we're going to probably prepare at least 2 2017-18 budgets. One right now, assuming that we don't get a single additional dollar from the legislature, and so how do we budget for next year, figuring that we have about the same amount of revenue to plan on as we have this year, and hopefully before too long, an accurate budget that will reflect changes in our funding levels from the legislature. So the budget guidelines are more vague than I have given you in the past because we don't know some things that we need to know to really make firm commitments to that budget. And so this is a document that will be adjusted as the legislature makes decisions. But we have included some additional pieces in the timeline so that we make sure that our stakeholders, as we do gather information or get more information, and as we do know what those changes are in our funding levels are, that we can include our stakeholders in decisions about how we might do things differently if we have a better level of funding from the legislature. So there are more specific opportunities to meet with our bargaining units, for example, to ensure that each of those organizations have a say in changes in how we do things for kids in the district with our dollars that we receive.
I'd just like to add a few comments to what Dana has said. I checked with her before I went down to testify. Always a good idea,
Always.
particularly on the financial matters. And she said of one of the budgets, or actually both of them, make sure they don't end up costing us money. And the Senate budget, I mean, these things are changing, as we found from our discussions with Representative Griffey all the time. But while I was there, Tim Garchow,
That's correct.
who was the head of WASDA, while I was waiting to testify, he did the figures. And at present, the Senate plan was counting homeless. You know, we got free and reduced lunch for, isn't it all our schools?
No.
Elementary.
We have some kids at the secondary, but all of our
Yeah.
elementary.
All of the elementary. And we get 51% of federal funding, you know, for that. Pretty good. And that's calculated on the basis of what? They use a different scale for the state uses a different scale for calculating that than the national government does. The national government uses polling data, which takes only, you know, it's out of date because the changes in population all the time. They update it from time to time, but it's never as representative of the actual numbers.
Right, it's based on the census, so
Yeah.
it's always, the further we get from the most recent census, the less accurate that it is.
So, how much would it cost us? About $300,000. It would have been 51% free and reduced, now 51% backed by the government, something like 21% if the Republican budget or the Senate budget went through as it was. And so that was a point, you know, that I make, do no harm. And this would definitely harm us, and when I gave my comments, I praised them for a number of things. I thought they were doing well and pointed out if they do what they're planning to do right now, that's why we're out, because it would cost us, you know, $300,000 right then. Well, discussions are going on, and as Dan has said, because I've been talking to these people recently, as she and I've been in on meetings where the governors had a say and other people are having a say, and, you know, guesstimates and this sort of thing, nobody really knows. And so it really is the case that it is very difficult to exactly say what our budget is going to be for the next year until we get the actual figures, and we'll be able to see what's coming our way, what's covered better than it was before, and oh my goodness, what's covered less well, you know,
So,
than it
yeah.
was before.
So right now, we're not counting on anything different than we got this year.
Yeah.
And if we get more, that will be great, but we could end up less if we don't fight hard enough and get our way on some of those changes that they're looking at.
Right,
I do have
go ahead.
I have a question. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze again. We're currently subsidizing the free and reduced lunch at the elementary level. That's K-5 only, correct? And that costs us about $25,000 a year?
It was a little less than that this past year,
Okay.
but yeah.
But we don't at the middle school.
No, we have, we don't meet the number of
I see.
forms turned in to be able to do that yet at the middle or the high school. So
Okay.
as you kids get older, in any district, fewer of those forms get turned in, you know, for
Yeah.
free and reduced lunch, even though we probably could say that if everybody turned in the forms in the same degree that they did in elementary school, our percentages would be the same, but our percentages tend to go down as kids
Yeah.
get older. So we would like to get there, and our food service director is working on it, but we have to meet certain thresholds before we can bring that all free meals
Yeah.
to the other levels.
And I think that Dana's conversations particularly with Representative Griffey and actually with all representatives, are showing fruit. I mean, I can't speak for Representative Griffey. I believe very strongly he's listened very carefully, understands our concerns about the Senate version of the budget, and I think the same is true of Drew McEwen. And I think they have heard our concerns, and they know what they are, and they also know we will be back. If the concerns are, if we're left holding economic bags, you know, next time, we're not going away until schools are adequately funded. And so I think that our Dana's in-touchness with everyone and me going down there fairly regularly, I think we have a board that's attuned to the significance of what's happening on the state level and how it impacts us. And I think that's part of the message we take to the legislators. We're not here just for a visit or to check this off our box. You know, we will come back. Here are real needs. They affect our constituents. They affect our kids. We're very concerned about it. We hope you are too. You notice where we are in the national, you know, group of funding, right there with some of the southern states. How do you feel about that? I mean, we do this very politely. But we try to indicate very clearly that something more is needed of Washington State, who has all this technology, all this industry, and has a funding for education that is approaching the bottom third. Not acceptable. So,
Well said.
I'm beginning to heat up in my
Yes.
own meeting, and so I think we better move on
Okay.
at that point.
Yeah, so the next item, Denise, could you open up the district success plan? Because I do want you to see, we've done something a little bit different with this presentation than in the past. In the past, we've bulleted the items that we're working on, and I've talked to you about where we are. But we have worked really hard with our leadership team to make both the district and the building success plans more living documents. And things that we're interacting with the information and making sure that we're collecting information and checking on where we are. So what I submitted to you in the board packet this month was our updated plan. On the right-hand column, the when in progress column, we have included when we've touched base, what things we've done, what things we're working on, what questions we have as we move forward, things we as an administrative team might want to adjust or change or do differently. So I think it gives you much more information than if I give you some pretty pictures and a PowerPoint slides. And that's why I gave it to you this way. So as you can see, we have been doing a lot of work collectively with district staff as well as our building staff in meeting each of our goals around the turnaround principles for this year. And we have had different things where building administrators or teachers have taken the lead in moving some of our initiatives forward and ensuring that things are happening for kids and staff. And I think this reflects some really good work by the team that we have together in this district. I will have you know there are questions as we're checking on where we are this year and starting to think about what do we do next, or are we doing the right work that we're talking about. And so, you know, when we're looking at, and these are some of the things that came up with as a board too, how do we really measure student learning, and how do we measure if what we're doing is effective? And so we're asking ourselves those questions and looking at how we do that so that we have the right information in front of us when we talk to staff or about how they're doing, or kids about how they're doing, or parents about how we think we're doing with their kids. And then, you know, we want to talk a little bit more about, we have PBIS implemented, you know, our positive behavior plan, K-8 now. But, and we do things that might align at the high school, but it's not exactly the same stuff. So is there a conversation we need to have about that as we move forward? And then we're really looking at one of the biggest challenges for us, and it's growing, and it's not that we're different, it's growing across the board, across the state, across the region, is that we have kids who come to school more and more with very significant challenges that interfere with their ability to get anything done or to learn anything at school. And how do we ensure that we're improving the classroom environments for all kids, not just for the kids who come and have had all of their meals and have stable homes and don't have trauma in their history that interferes with how they can approach anything because they're having to get past what they've dealt with in the past, or don't have behavioral issues that are a result of all sorts of things that happen to kids in their lives. So that's the things that we're working on. If you have any questions, or
I just want to add that we're as much in the conversations that I've heard on the very, issues that Dan is talking about. I hear these from the various discussions I'm part of, and just indicates again, we're up at the line. We're right with what's being discussed in schools across the state.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, we move on to
B.
We are B, at Community Linkage Planning and Message of the Month. Does anyone have anything to say about this? I mean, because we're already aware of that. I would just urge, I'm going to do this myself, but when you go to the meetings you go to, either talk at Victor, I can always make an announcement. So they have that, and I'll do that. But at whatever meetings we're a part of, canvass people, just mention to people the plan for the stadium that we have and get some feedback. So we can really show Art how wrong he was. In our
got one more.
next meeting. Oh,
Yeah, well, and I would just bring up, John, that then as part of, in response to our earlier discussion, maybe the stadium project needs to be the focus of our upcoming Mason Life.
yeah, that sounds very
From
good.
the
As a
board
starting
member.
place.
Because
Mhm.
that's my job this
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, so we better.
And I can work with you on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
maybe we'll just want to do double fold and do the whole thing, so we have more
Uh-huh.
information.
Great.
Did we forget, or maybe not forget, but Ken was going to talk about
I think
four.
wants to talk
got-
on the
We're
next
not-
item.
It's
We're
next.
not
Oh,
there yet.
we're not, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Just want to make sure.
Okay. So I
Oh.
think that's all addressed unless someone has anything else to add. So we're up to membership in the National School Board Association. And I'll just read this for those that don't have a copy. In the past, the board belonged to the National School Board Association, but that has not been in effect in several years. School directors from each congressional district participate in NSBA's legislative program, Federal Relations Network. One conference is held in late January or February in Washington, D.C., where Federal Relationship Network, FRN, members are briefed on the National School Board's legislative program and meet with members of Congress. Now, we got Ken has signed up, so Ken, if you would like to make some comments, we're ready to hear.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Campbell. I feel like I missed a meeting, because I'm like Art. That last meeting was a public hearing about the bond obligation. So I'll talk more about that at the end, but during that meeting, right after that non-voter approved obligation, there was quite a discussion amongst the board about tightening your belts. I guess I'd encourage all of you to watch that school board meeting. It's online, just so you can recall what happened. But I remember Director Campbell, after the obligation hearing, public hearing, Mr. Campbell gave quite a lengthy discussion or dissertation about joining that national membership. And so I saw earlier this week that it's on the agenda this evening to rejoin. I guess I have a couple questions. I'm curious when the board used to belong to the National School Board Association. It says several years, but I'm curious when that was. And also what the potential costs are. When I look through the supporting documentation for it, I can see that it might send a mixed message to your constituents if the board and up to 5 school personnel decide to go to Washington DC for a meeting, or to Denver, Colorado, or whatever. So it just perhaps sends a mixed message.
So,
Especially in light of what.
the last
You-
year,
You don't have to.
no, I can answer those right now. The last year that the board belonged was in 2012.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and costs for belonging are dependent on the size of the district. So our district fee to belong to the Fern would be $2,140 at this point in time for our district, our size.
That's per year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they elect to travel to.
Then that would be whatever the travel costs were at that point in time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I do think when we were talking about belonging to this National School Board Association, it was one year we would go to the state conference and network with our state school boards, and then perhaps the off year, not all of us, but 1 or 2 of us would go to the National School Board and bring back that information to the rest of the board. Depending on where that would be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the conferences always are. But at any rate, it was sort of a mix. We would now have a mix of networking that we would have access to. Just belonging to the state board kind of leaves us in a vacuum. We're only privy to all of the information that we get through the state board. This would give us information through the National School Board and access to many members that we could pick their brains, see what's going on in other states. We don't do an awful lot as a school board other than that one conference a year, and we all try to go to that. We all have not gone every year, so it's just my thought.
Yeah, that's in keeping with my thing. I don't even think we have, I can't imagine a circumstance in which more than one of us would go.
Yeah.
Anyway, my thought on this, having seen the value of our connections to the political process here in the state, and having learned from my discussions at WASDA about the things that our legislators do not know, talk about the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. One year, the Federal Relations Network was able to explain to the legislators here why a bill they'd passed is costing their state money, because they inadequately understood what was actually, the national program for funding. So I am convinced of the value of attending to this. And even if we just were part of the information flow and went to our national legislator's office locally, and if that alone was our communication, it would be worth the $2,000 right there to be able to understand what exactly is the national funding for what that comes to this state, and how will that then affect, if it does, what's going on here. And essentially it gives us binocular vision.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of us sometime when, I think that would be a good idea. But I've just been convinced that we're really not honoring our commitment to our constituents unless we're aware of what's going on in Washington and how that affects what's going on in the other Washington and how that affects what we're doing here. And so minimally, I think that we ought to belong. And the reason is, it would be rather easy to save $2,000 minimum by our understanding of national program as part of our local program, because it is. And I think it would be, it would put us in a better position to do a responsible job of governing.
And it's also, it's a 2-day, is it, the conference, the national one? I was just reading a little bit. I think it's a 2-day thing in Colorado.
But belonging doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to the conference.
Right,
You
right.
would still decide that at a board meeting.
Sure.
So.
I'm not likely to go to one of the conferences unless I'm retired from my other job, which isn't coming up right very quickly. But I can see the value of the membership.
Well, yeah, my thought would, we probably wouldn't much, but there might be a particular year when we thought it was sufficiently important, and then we could. Because one of the things about WASDA, our group, or the FRN, they're related to, the National School Board Association, is that we're one of the few, the Washington delegation is one of the few that actually goes to the Department of Education. And by talking to people, not necessarily the head, but the people that are administering the program, we get some detailed and accurate information about what Washington, the other Washington, is planning, and any questions we have about national programs and how they affect us, we can address there. I think that's value, to our constituents. And no, I don't imagine us going this year or anytime soon, but I would like to retain the option, of going. I mean, I only go down to Olympia here, usually when WASDA calls and needs boots on the ground. It's 50 minutes, but every time I've gone, it's something that affects us. And this year, I'm beginning to get some of the ideas about how what goes on in Washington affects us. And I'm convinced through getting informed there, what about waking up the other half of your brain? And, discovering how the two fit together. I think that's an important combination for any board and for ours in particular.
This brings up, and Ken's comment brings up another related question. This obviates or disobviates, there's benefits to membership, period, which I do understand. But if a person isn't a member, does that preclude them from being able to attend a conference?
Of
I
the
would think
Federal
not.
Relations Network part, yes.
It does.
Yes. That's my understanding.
Okay.
And I'm seeing the information flow that we would get from them as the valuable thing right now. So by attending to this, we all can, but I'll be, or whoever is our rep, and everybody is open for that. I'm actually favoring Grace for a honorary rep, after her work for us this past week, but.
Yeah, well, you will all get the information, not
Yeah.
just one person that comes from them
Right.
about what's going on
That's
in
what-
Washington DC.
Right, and so we'll all be aware of those two things through our WASDA channels. We'll all be informed of what's going on in the state, and through the FERN network, we'll all be able to understand what's going on in Washington. And I think all of us will be in a position to put those two together and see what questions may arise.
And it's kind of been interesting to, to hear the new Secretary of Education and the current administration saying they want to see the states have more control and more, they want to throw it back to the states, which is what the Obama administration kind of finally did towards the end. But on the other side of the coin is the history of the Secretary of Education has not been like that. But she's been saying she wants to do that, so it kind of goes both ways. Don't know how to take that, so maybe it would be smart to to have this membership.
I think you've made the case.
Well, we don't have a motion on the floor, so.
No, as a matter of fact, the floor will be open at this point for a motion to join the National School Board Association.
I move that we resume our membership in the National School Board Association.
Further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that brings us to assurance of organizational performance, monitoring reports. And we're talking here about the ER9. So you want to do this, I guess we'll do it part by part. Let's start with the ER9, communication with the public, communication with public monitoring report, and then the monitoring response. I would just as soon start with a motion, and then that puts us in a position to,
That's what we normally do.
discuss this. So the floor is open for a motion on on our approval of the ER9 series, communication with the public, communication with the public monitoring report, and the monitoring response.
I move that we find the superintendent to be in compliance with ER9, communication with the public.
Okay, discussion.
I just keep saying in every meeting that I'm really impressed with the communications that have come out, and people are really happy. I mean, I see that. I don't see any more complaints on there. Like they're all spinning in circles, going, "Where are we going to get this information?" And it's out there, and it's been really great. So, sorry, I kind of zoned out for a minute.
Well, I'd just like to add one thing that maybe we're not all completely aware of. Our superintendent was a candidate for Citizen of the Year.
Yes, she was.
And her loss is actually a gain because I would have preferred for her to win. But I was at the gala, and there was a very impressive nomination, and it was concerned with her innovation in with the preschool planning and what the importance of that for our community, and how it's a plus and addresses a problem that's been before the community for some time. There was some warm vibes,
Nice.
From that particular group, and I went to that, and our superintendent communicates very well with a very important segment of our constituents, and I think this was just a further example in addition to things of which we're aware.
So, we haven't voted yet.
No.
I'll call for the question.
All right. All those in favor of finding the superintendent in compliance with communication with the public, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
And I'd like to add a comment
Sure.
for the record for the superintendent and for our records for when we do our later stuff with that. And that is, I'm perfectly in agreement with what we've spoken, said, but I'd like to note that we need to do some work on the stadium as a public outreach thing, which is really this stuff
Sure.
too. That would be something to focus on in particular at this point.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So that
Thanks,
should
Art.
go, as a comment from the board onto the document.
Yep. Denise is getting it.
Great.
Okay, that brings us to ER12, student conduct and discipline. So the floor is open for a motion to find the superintendent in compliance with ER 12.
So moved.
Discussion.
I'm really pleased with this graph. I like visuals. And I'm pleased with the graph actually reflecting students who have 0 discipline incidents rather than students who have discipline incidents. And I love the fact that it's going up. So it was, that was really encouraging to me, and thank you for that visual.
Well, as we did some of our work on the academic E's and ERs earlier in the year as a board, one of the things we really talked about is what do we want to measure? And, you know, if what we expect is positive behavior from students, then when we're doing, I decided to change, because in the past, historically, before I got here and in my last 2 years, we've reported the numbers and percentages of kids that have had different kinds of discipline and negative.
Mm-hmm.
But if what we're wanting kids to do is positive behaviors, then what we should be measuring and talking about is the positive behaviors in the kids who do those. So I'm glad that you noticed that. That's why I made the change in the report. So,
Yep. Thank
and it
you.
is very exciting that since 2014, there's been some pretty dramatic improvement, and not just overall with the light blue bars. It's on the last page of the report, Denise, if you want to pull it up so folks can see it. But for our subgroups that we measure, students in bilingual education programs, free and reduced lunch, and homeless students, and students in special education, we see some really, really great information. And in fact, our kids who sometimes come with some difficult things, particularly special education and bilingual students, are actually doing better than the average of the total population as far as not getting into trouble at school. So I think those are some things to celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a 30% change since 2014-15. That's notable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any further discussion on E12?
No.
All in favor of finding the superintendent in compliance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that brings us to the first leg of adjournment, announcements and comments, public. And I've got Dina Penhale.
Basically, I'm here to address the school board and just, well, I guess a couple reasons. For one, to let you guys know that I'm bringing a new program to the area called Tinker Garden, and it's geared for the preschool age children and under. So my personal classes will probably be hosting like 18 months to 5-year-olds, just because there's not a whole lot for little kids to do in the community right now. And it's an outdoor-based learning program, so we do lots of guided activities outside, and the families actually stay. You know, you don't just drop the kid off and then leave. The families stay, and we all interact in nature and bond together. And sorry, I have 2 classes to be held at Belfair State Park, and then I also wanted to hold one at Feller. And I did speak with Joan. She recommended I stop by here too, and there's been a couple other meetings that said, oh, go talk to the school board about your program. And so that's just kind of why I'm here, is just to make you guys aware that that's what I'm doing right now, and it's going to start this spring. And I have 9 kids signed up for free trials right now, so that's pretty exciting to me. It's my first season doing anything like this, and this spot at Feller that I wanted to use is the little area down there where the little benches are, like little amphitheater area. And then if it's super raining out, then just kind of come up in under the breezeway there. But the kids have, you know, activities where they'll go out. They will probably get wet and muddy, things like that, and then come back and, you know, for snack and stuff like that under the whalebone area. That's what my son calls it, the whalebone. So. My son is also going to be attending the classes with me, so I'll have him, and then I can have up to 12 children per class as a maximum. So I'm starting with the 3 classes right now. I can add classes in the future and add more parks like the Allen Waterfront Park is. You know, I just kind of wanted to start and see if the response from the community for these 3 right now, and it can go from there, and then also answer any questions that you guys might have for me.
So you also have a Facebook, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, I saw it come out and I was like, oh, that is such a good idea. Because I remember when my kid, he's 7, well, coming up on 7 now, and there was just nothing to do. You know, there was just not a lot to do. So getting him involved, so I thought it was really cool. I'm watching your Facebook, and I'm looking forward to your updates and how everything's going. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
my son, you know, he's not 4 yet. He would love to go play t-ball and do things like that. There's just
Yeah.
distinct age cutoffs for that age group, and that's, you know, also just people go, okay, well, I took my kid to the park today, but you know, maybe there's something more, and
Yeah.
I just believe that this is that something more, and it's all seasons. Obviously, if the weather is just too bad, then I can have makeup classes that are provided and stuff like that. But yep,
Good job.
I'm just really excited and wanted to do that, and also just get permission, you know, formal permission to be at Feller as well.
So that, you can come in and we can talk about that outside of the board meeting. We can get
Okay,
that
I
figured
didn't know
out.
if
Yeah.
anyone's allowed to do that here or
Yeah.
not, but,
Yeah, that's okay. But I'd love to talk to you more about how we can partner on that, so.
okay.
Well, I'm really delighted that you're here. It's a kind of coincidence. I have a call in to, I think it's Jennifer Forrester, who has got a large program in Shelton. It's been called the Mason County Preschool Program or something, and I want to make that a fact by bringing her, and perhaps some of her funding sources or connections with that, to preschool programs that we're having here. So I hope that it'll be even better than you think when all those concerned with preschool kids in our county are together and talking with one another about where the state of the art is. So thank you very much. If you want to friend me on Facebook, then I would know more about what's going on. But
Sure, all right.
I say that purely in my public capacity.
Thank you so much, Dina. I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements and comments from the board and superintendent.
You had, Ken, remember, had another
had
Oh,
comment.
Ken, I am sorry. I just had it down for one.
Yeah, I had.
He mentioned it.
Like to-
Okay, sure.
Um, I was at the meeting last month, January 19th, and I, was the only member of the public that came and testified. And that wasn't presented to us last month.
That meaning what?
That.
The board.
diagram
Oh,
of
the football stadium thing.
Yes. I left that meeting under the impression that you were planning to build a new stadium. I distinctly remember pointing out that the bonds supposedly couldn't be used for new construction. And you had quite a, I'm gonna go home and rewatch that meeting, and I would encourage you all to do it too. But I'm glad to hear about this. I think at last month's meeting, though, didn't you enter into an agreement with the county for an RCO grant for that same field?
And it
Isn't
will
there-
apply to this.
Sure, but there's some long-term obligations that go along with that, so it's gonna have to be, that's something that needs to go out to your constituents as well, because, I'm confused, and I was at that meeting, so, anyway, I appreciate what's happening here. I didn't think that, I kind of remember that seemed like that was where it was going to be put. Of course, things happen in a month's time. I did want to mention something. Superintendent Rosenbaugh gave a really nice update to the Board of County Commissioners here a couple weeks ago about the Early Childhood Learning Center at Feller. I just wanted to remind you, about a year ago, you had a community forum about Feller. And not just the building, but the trails and the properties and just what the community would like to see. We haven't had any updates on any of that. The public hasn't, excuse me, to hear what's going on with the trails in the school. Superintendent Rosenbaum assured the community at the Board of County Commissioner meetings that that the school's working on it, but I think it would be nice to update them as well, and communicate that with what's happening. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, this, oh, so that brings us back to hours. Anyone have any other comments?
I have one, we do a whole lot of stuff trying to deal with the kids who are in trouble. Trouble's the wrong word. Kids who are needy and for whatever reasons. And that gets a whole lot of attention these days. And I just like to bring up and point out, I had a teacher today bring this up to me. This is why I'm bringing it up. We can't also forget both. We are doing stuff for everyone else, but we should also remember that we need to let people know that we're still doing stuff for everyone else, the folks that aren't so needy and stuff.
Good point.
That's also something that in the Girl Scout world that we deal with. You know, we're always focusing on trying to get the new kids in, or the kids of kids of color, or whatever it is, or different gender issues and stuff like that. And yet the bulk of our membership are kids that are not like that. And we have to remember that we do serve them, and we serve them first. And yet the attention is always going elsewhere. So I just wanted to bring that up, that this happens with schools too.
Thanks, Art.
We actually do, I think, a really good job, a wonderful job with the kids that aren't in everyone's attention, or getting the attention. And we should remember that and celebrate that, if nothing else. So that's my comment.
I don't have anything.
I want to mention one thing I failed to mention, and that was the particular graciousness of Dan Griffey. The voting machine in the House of Representatives broke. And
no.
So he was going to be tied up all day in voting. But when the machine broke, he volunteered to take Dana and Grace and Megan on a whole campus tour. And this was really a big deal. If you like me on Facebook, I got all the pictures there. Maybe you got, do we have the pictures on the school website? Okay, well, we got it on the school website, but we got to see things you ordinarily wouldn't see, which is, did you know there's a tunnel that goes from the O'Brien building all the way over? And I've got a picture of the three of them standing in water. I mean, it was just a little puddle, but there they are, and you can see this. And he took us over. See, he took us over to the Supreme Court, and very beautiful thing. We can't go in other than, to look where the People's Justice is done.
That's
got
cool.
to see their
That's
library,
really cool.
and I thought it was very gracious of him to think of us and to take his time, which I'm sure he's got other things to think about and many phone calls to make. I thought that was exceptionally gracious of him to do that. And I also want to commend Dana again for thinking to bring our two student school board members along. I thought that was just, well, you liked it, didn't you?
It was a very great experience.
Yeah.
For sure.
What more to be said?
I also failed to mention, and it's just a small thing, but when we had lunch over here at the Hawkins, lunch like that was not when I was a kid. So we had like cardboard pizza that was hard, and there was like yogurt and wraps and their salad bar, and they were having that day. It was chicken teriyaki. I didn't have it. I had a yogurt cup, but it's yogurt, and then they put fruit, and then I'm telling you, but it's got a muffin in it, and then they put more fruit on it and a muffin top on the top. It was just incredible. I couldn't even eat the whole thing, but the food over there is amazing. So good job on the choices. So anyway.
And it was great to chat with this leadership over there.
That was my first comment there in the beginning, so I had to follow it up with what I ate. So full experience, full circle. Sorry.
Well, okay. That's, if there are no more comments, we're to board self-assessment. And who is supposed to do this
I am.
time? Okay.
Now, I was supposed to do this last month also, and I managed to talk Grace into doing it.
Okay.
And I
You were volunteered last year,
Megan.
or
I
last month.
volunteered her. Well, she agreed. I don't know if you'd be
Well,
interested in
you were
it,
volunteered
but-
last month.
Oh.
So,
That makes
yeah.
me extremely nervous.
Okay, then why don't we not, I'll do it.
How about, yes, and
But
I will
then
pay
think
attention.
about
I will do it next
Right,
meeting.
it would be, I think it's really good when you folks, the students are
Yes.
rating us. Okay, that's why I just didn't want to put you on the spot, so
Okay.
I'll do it.
Next meeting, I will.
Okay, I'm not as good
Very
as
honest of
Debbie
you.
Griffey, who I think is the best one that does this of all of us, but all of you do better than I do, so, anyway. General meeting behavior, was the agenda well-planned to focus on the real work of the board? I'm gonna say satisfactory. Did the board follow the agenda and not get sidetracked? I'm gonna say also satisfactory. Were board members prepared for and contributed to the meeting? We all contributed. I presume you're all prepared. I was. So I'll say satisfactory. The meeting proceeded without interruptions or distractions. That was the case. So satisfactory. The board's deliberations and decision-making processes were public. Well, yes, we actually had some public here too, and we're on video. Participation was balanced. I think I talked a little bit too much, but all participated, no one dominated, so I'm going to say satisfactory. Members listened attentively, thank you for that. Avoiding side conversations, satisfactory. Work was conducted in an atmosphere of trust and openness, and I felt that, even though I was, no, I'm kidding. Meeting participants treated each other with respect and courtesy, and that certainly was the case from the public and whatever.
Even when I said you were wrong?
Yes, that was courteously, did it courteously. Okay, then part 2, governance principles review. Our actions occur at the policy level rather than the operational level. And I think we kind of illustrated that in a certain sense. We didn't dictate what has to happen here with the stadium thing. We had a discussion because it was just simply informational. We made no actions, but now we have some direction that is going. In any case, so I'm going to say yes on that level. We review policy about each topic before discussing that issue. You know what? We always say yes, but I think sometimes we forget or we don't. But I don't think that's a big issue here because we're all aware of our policies as we are discussing and dealing with them. So I'm just going to say yes on that as well. I mean, it's not like we read the policy ahead of time and then start discussing it. We're in on that. In writing additional policies, we didn't write any new ones today, so I'll put an A. We minimize time spent monitoring past performance. I will say yes. We did do some past performance here, but it was necessary.
It was appropriate.
Yes. The board clarifies priorities, values when considering potential outcomes, and that is definitely what we were dealing with today, particularly with the stadium issue. The board follows an annual calendar, and you all know that we do. If you don't, we do. The board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meeting. You're on there, John. The board spends most of its time deliberating issues, defining and clarifying its vision, and linking with its community as opposed to fixing things. And that very much defines us. In my case, I wish I could link better. Having 6 people give me grief over a stadium and nobody doing the other is because that's an anomaly. Normally I get 0 to 1 people talking to me any other time for anything. The board supports the superintendent in any reasonable interpretation of its policies, and that we have certainly done that, and I hope you feel that's the case too. So that's yes also. So overall, I'm going to mark us satisfactory. Any comments anyone wants to make about our processes? Okay, that's it.
Okay,
I'll let you look.
then that,
Yes.
And you can ask for a blank copy from Denise too.
brings us to self-assessment. So the next board meeting will be March 16th, 2017 at 6:30 in this same locale. And so with that, I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
And thank you all for attending.